Welcome to this episode of the Gunman. So this video here is part 3 on the respray of this 1964 Mini Cooper. So we're going to be picking right up from where we left off in the previous video, and this is the next morning after we had got the body painted. This video is going to be going right through, mainly focusing on the panels. We're going to be redoing the roof, which if you guys have been watching, you'll probably remember that I got a few bits of silicone in the roof, so we're going to sand that back and give that a couple more coats of black. We've also got a couple of wheel arch flares that we're going to do at the same time, and yeah, do all those panels. So not going to be focusing so much on the prep work in this one. I did include a lot of that in the last one, but I also put a video up on my Raw channel, which was just a big 30-minute prep work stage. But I didn't even bother actually recording myself when I was doing the prep work on these panels. But that's cool, you'll still get the basic idea of the process that I've done. So this is just a quick look at the engine. From what I'm told, it was like a 1-litre engine. As you can see, you've got your dual carbies there. And Mowog is what's written on the rocket cover there, so it must have been the company that built these in Australia. Anyone that's got more info on that, be sure to put it in the comments below, because I'm not 100% on that Mowog company. I'm just a paint guy, not the Mini expert, so I'm sure some of you guys know a bit more about it. But this is just a quick look at the paint that we're going to be using. It's the Nason Full Thane 2K, so it goes with the hardener. I've been using it at 4:1. Tartan Red is the name of the colour, and that is a mini colour used on these cars from factory. And this is it. Once we gave it a bit of an unmask, it's starting to look pretty nice now. We still actually haven't put the doors on this thing yet. Now, the original deal with the owner was to get the paint and panel done, he comes and takes it, and we never see him again. But unfortunately, for me anyway, I've been having to push it inside and out of the workshop every single day. He's decided that he wants us to go and put all the panels back on for him. But moving on, this is when we're doing the prep work on these panels. So you can see my mate there giving those doors a block down. He would be using 180 grit, and we had a few pretty bad repairs, as you can see on the doors there. So we just tapped up the worst of it, put some filler in there, finish it off nice and fine, and then just put some Nason 1K acrylic primer over it. Gave that a quick scuff back and paint. So just about ready to start getting some paint onto these panels. Had a bit of a last minute repair here. When we were waxing grease removing it, we noticed this little area about this big that it was starting to bubble up with some old acrylic and old filler under there. So all I did was just grab my mini grinder, grind it back, put a bit of fine filler in there, just sand it out with some 180 and 400, and then just put a bit of that Nason 1K over there. That'll only take 5 minutes to dry. I'll give that a quick scuff with 400 again, give it another wax and grease remover, and tack rag, and start getting some colour on. So as far as the rest of the panels, all we did was just block them down with 180. There was one bit here we had to redo, just a bit of filler and a bit of 1K primer. And then after the 180, we just orbital sanded with 320 grit with the interface pad on it. Did all the edges with 320, and we went over with the orbital sander again with 500, and then went over all the edges with 400 grit. So pretty happy with the progress. Got a few little hinges and smaller parts to do. So this is Saturday today, it's day 4, and Monday I'll be redoing the roof, and that's just about us. So to keep the prices down on this job, we're not doing any refitting of the panels. So you may have remembered that earlier in this video I said to myself at the start, to make good money on this we have to get it done in 5 days. So by the time we've spent half a day on Monday, we'll be ahead of time, and pretty happy, make a couple of bucks on it, and do the car a bit of justice. It's going to look awesome when it's all back together. So obviously before I started spraying, I gave it a wipe down with some wax and grease remover or prep sol, wiped that all off, made sure there was no residue left over, and then I got the tack rag, I got the air, the high pressured air, obviously made sure my body was clean, the spray suit was clean, I got no dust on myself, and then also wiped the entire panels down 3 times with the tack cloth to make sure it's extremely clean before I go and lay any of this paint down, using the DeVilbiss SGK 1.4mm, so full fan, full fluid, around 20 psi. Pretty easy gun to set up, and it gets it on real nice. I've mentioned this in loads of videos. I've got loads of people onto this gun, and yeah, again, I will say it again, I do recommend it for anyone, whether or not you're a top class sprayer or you're a DIYer. It definitely does tick all the boxes for me. So I'm using this Nason at a 4:1 ratio with some concept hardener, and it works just fine. I've been told that by the paint reps. They're like, man, there's nothing wrong with it. They said maybe when it gets like really warm, it might start flashing off a bit too quick, so go 8:1. And they said that there's not going to be any issues with that, and I've used it quite a few times and it dries well. It's not like it goes too hard, and it's not like it takes too long to dry or anything. I have noticed that it does take a little bit longer to dry than some of the other brands of paint. Like it'll flash off really quickly, so it'll be like touch dry quite quickly, but then for it to actually go sort of hard enough to polish, you might wait for 2 days. After 2 days, bang, it's fine to polish. But yeah, the next day it's just you can just sort of just put your fingernail into it a little bit. So you'll probably notice when I'm doing the paint work on this, I'm basically not even leaving any flash off times. So I started on the bonnet, then did that boot lid. By the time I've done the 2 doors and the hinges, I'm right to continue to go straight around back to where I started from at the start. So would I use this Nason on my own car? Well, yeah, I probably would actually, depending on what kind of car it was. If it was this car and I was doing this kind of work to it, absolutely I'd be using it. But if I had to strip the whole thing back to bare metal and I wanted a really top class job done on it, I'd probably use a top line paint. I'd probably spend over $1,000 just on the paint. But for the way we're doing this, we're just going over the top of old acrylic paint, probably from the 60s or 70s. You really do need to do it properly. You need to take all of that off, and that's a massive job. But for the work that we're doing, this is perfect, absolutely perfect. You know, he might get, say, 5 years out of it, and then by that time he's going to totally love this car, and he's going to be like, you know what, I want it done properly this time. It's a good enough car that it's worth doing that to. I believe it is. It's got basically no rust in it. Some of the guys that have watched from the start, I had no rust repairs to do. I was absolutely amazed. Like, usually when you get these bigger jobs, you'll have a few little repairs that you'll have to do, but there was actually no fiber. I didn't put any fiberglass in the car, and I didn't put any rust killer on the car whatsoever. The boot floor was totally clean, and yeah, I was just pretty amazed about it, really. But I do believe the car deserves a little bit better than what we're doing, but at the end of the day, he can get that done later down the track. He's getting what he's paying for, so I'll sleep well tonight knowing that I've done a good job in his budget. So we ended up ordering in 3 litres of this paint, so that's pre-mixed before hardening goes in. Mix it up at the 4:1 ratio, which makes you end up with an extra 750 mils. So you got 3.75 litres, and with this Nason, there's no need for any reducer whatsoever. It's already very thin as is. And yeah, as you guys probably know, I ended up having to put 3 coats on the entire car. We also painted the inside. We obviously did the roof in the black, but I was left with basically just enough paint to do a few touch-ups. So just scraped through. Usually I'd like to have a little bit more paint left over in case I do have to do a panel here and there, but it was just that extra coat. I guess I was budgeting for 2 coats. I was expecting, 3 litres will have me a bit left over, and I'll only put 2 coats on it, but it turned out that I needed that extra one. I really wasn't happy with it after 2. It probably was just covered, but the way I see it is, you know, a year down the track, he decides he's going to give it a really good cut and polish, and then he ends up cutting through on all these edges and stuff like that. Plus, it's always good to have that little bit extra, even just for our own sake, you know. Say I did get a run, which would be very rare to get with this Nason because it dries so quick, and it's so easy to use. It's one of the easiest paints to use because it dries so quick. You're basically not going to get runs with it. But yeah, if you do need, say you get a bit of silicone hole and you need to, you know, do a little touch up, or you got a bit of dust on an edge and you have to sand it a little bit more back than what you would expect, and then you go and, you know, get the buff onto it and you cut through, that would totally suck, you know. So for what it takes, it's cheap paint. I think it's like $30 a litre. It's crazy cheap. So you guys may have also noticed me adjusting my pressure there when I started painting that boot lid. Some people ask, oh, why are you doing that? There's a pretty simple reason, because I can set my air pressure when I started painting that bonnet, and then say my mate's out there doing some sanding, or he's doing whatever he's doing with grinding with some air and blowing stuff off, and then what happens is the pressure in the compressor will start going down, and then the compressor will kick back in and it'll start jumping back up. So, you know, sometimes I just got to adjust the settings on the gun to suit, you know. I basically do still paint by feel. Like, I don't paint by a reading on my regulator. To be honest, the main reason I look at it these days is actually to tell you guys the settings that I have it at. But I'll just know by looking at it and by listening to it where the pressure should be. Unless you're doing HVLP spraying with HS clears like I used to, get right into the settings, and it was, yeah, full crazy hardcore type thing when I was working at this BMW shop. But these days I'm just a bit more relaxed about it, and I'm not, you know, full tuber, and I had to have it, you know, real close and go up real quick. And I did this sort of 30-70 method with my clear, and yeah, I might even touch on that later on when I get the chance to do some demos and stuff. But these days I've sort of moved away from the HVLP spray guns because it's a lot easier to get a better finish with the conventional spray gun, which is what this gun is. Yes, I think I mentioned it in the previous video that it says HVLP Transtech on the box, but to me it is not a HVLP spray gun. And like, historically, DeVilbiss guns have said Transtech on their conventional spray gun. So there's a good Wikipedia link there. I might even just put it in the video for you guys, and it explains the difference between HVLP, conventional, and LVLP. But all it is the size of the holes that the air comes out. So the bigger the size of the holes that the air comes out, so the where the two fins are on the side of your air cap, there's a couple of little holes there. And if they're medium size, it's going to be conventional. If they're big, it's going to be HVLP. So because they're bigger, it's going to be pushing out a higher volume, but it's going to be lowering the pressure. It's just like putting your finger over the hose. So when you've got the hose turned on and you've got no finger over it or anything, you've probably got the most amount of flow that you will get out of that hose, right? So that's the highest volume, but it's coming out at a lower pressure. You put your finger over the hose and less is coming out, but it's coming out at a higher pressure. So there you go, HVLP, myths busted. But how does this all relate back to what I was saying about getting a good finish? So being that there's so much air coming out of a HVLP spray gun, obviously the paint is going to follow the air. This is what we're doing when we spray paint. We are spraying the paint, and the fluid comes out the center, and the fluid will follow those air particles. But when you've got these really big air particles, you're going to get big blobs of paint. So you're going to get orange peel, and you're going to get a lot on. So I believe that with a HVLP spray gun, you need to get the actual more pressure coming out of that gun to get a half decent finish. So you've got to get it up to like 2 bar pressure before you get any half decent finishes out of it, which to me, that's high pressure. That's not even low pressure anymore. So basically, you really want a HVLP spray gun when you're spraying true HS clears in a really warm environment. Apart from that, don't even worry about them. You can also always just put an extra 5 or so % reducer into your HS clears, and they'll spray out of a conventional gun easily, which is what I do like about a conventional gun, which is what this is. LVLP, they'll really struggle with any thicker paint, so it doesn't really matter what size fluid tip you've got, and you know, within sort of 1.2 to 1.4, if the air that's coming out of that spray gun is not, say, enough actual air, it's not going to be able to drag or draw the paint out of the gun thick enough to actually transfer it onto your panel. Yeah, it sounds like I've given this a lot of thought, and I have. HVLP for a long time really did confuse me, because I was like, it's higher pressure, you know, but then I thought, you know what, yeah, I did a lot of thinking about it. I asked a lot of people a lot of questions about it, and it does make sense. So if you're just talking about just fluid transfer and you want to get the most efficient, if you don't even care about the finish that you're getting on it, well then, yeah, they probably are a bit more efficient. When you really start to notice how good it can be is when you use true HS clears and you do the 30-70 method. So you can put 10% in the Glazeret 255 clear. I do have one video, it's totally underrated. I made this video probably in 2011. uploaded it to YouTube way before I'd even thought about the Gunman, so no narration or anything like that. But you put like your first coat on is 30%, so it's just covered up the base coat, and literally straight away you put your next coat on heavy, and that's it. So you have no flash off times, but because you're using that thick HS clear with the HVLP spray gun, you're actually getting enough of a film build similar to 2 coats of MS. And that is where you actually get your paint savings. So yeah, your HS clears generally are a bit more expensive than your MS, but you will save paint. I think, I know, I had 130 mils per panel. I had that down to a T, and I used to mix my paint up on the scales. Like the Glazeret system had a full computer system that you could mix it up through the scales, and if you over mixed it, it'd calculate it for you and that. And just about every time I walked out of the booth, I would have like 2 drops of clear left in my gun, because I just had it down, say it was 130 for an average sized panel. You look at that panel and you say, well, if it's a bit bigger, well, then you might use a little bit more. Obviously the guard's going to take a touch less, but the door maybe, it's going to take a little bit more than the guard. But yeah, I had it down pat, and yeah, I look back at those days and I sort of miss working in that environment, because I was using full Glazeret, so no mixing and matching different products and that. And yeah, I just was a bit like a robot, but I just loved it. I was pumping out 5 cars a day, getting paid really well, sort of like $45 an hour back in 2009, 2010. And yeah, I ended up leaving that job and moved over here in 2012 and got a job in the mines for a year, did that. And then yeah, I ended up working at another place here in Perth. It was just going to be a bit of a fill-in job, and after that I ended up getting my own workshop, and then from there I'm moving over to Thailand. So there you go, there's a bit of a history of the Gunman all in one. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed sitting here and listening to me rant on. I've heard a few people that they do enjoy listening to me talk shit. If you don't, there is a volume button on YouTube. You can turn the volume down if you would like to watch me just paint. And you can put whatever music on in the background you like. You can listen to whatever you like. It doesn't bother me. And if you really still don't like it, just stop watching, or give it a thumbs down. Whatever, I don't care. Came up quite nice. No need to stop at all. 3 coats on the outside, 2 on the in. That's just about an off the gun finish right there. I don't think we'll be polishing it. Not any of these panels anyway. No silicone, no runs, no dry spots. No excessive shit. One bit here. We might decide just to cut that one out for what it's worth, but see how we go. 2 coats is plenty for the insides, but just later on down the track, as I mentioned, with the body of the car, gives us something to cut into, and a year down the track it starts fading. You can give it a good cut and polish and not worry about having no paint left. I went into paint saving mode towards the end of this. I really had to get that pressure right down, but the job didn't suffer at all. Still got a real nice finish on it. I would have only originally planned to have put 2 coats on it. This is the colour here. That's how much we've got left. So it gives us a little bit to, play with if you have to do 1 or 2, maybe 1 panel later on, but yeah, pretty happy with that. 3 litres all up, and that was at 4:1, just using the concept hardener. Good old Nason, it's awesome stuff. Yeah, it's cheap, but it's perfect for this kind of job. SGK goes hard. Another quality job done, Gunman style. This is one of my last jobs here in Australia. I think I might even fast track this video. There's been a bit of interest on it on my couple of Facebook and Instagram posts, so Might jump ahead of the queue. Got so many videos there that I'm planning on making, but I never seem to get the time to edit them. So ready to get this roof done again. I just sanded it down with 500 grit and then went over the top of that with some 800 just by hand. So it turns out I'm not going to flow coat it. I've got a little cut through there. There was a little bit of a run here after blocking it down and then hitting it with the orbital. Just a bit of a cut through, but it's no big deal. I'm going to be painting all these in 2-pack black anyway, so I'll just put some more 2-pack over these and again over that roof. We just got some Lessenol 2K here, 2-to-1. Probably go about 10% producer. Go with the SGK again. Get all this stuff painted and be going down and putting this big wad of cash in the bank. Woo! Gotta love that. Sold the VL. So I'm just gonna put some tunes on while I'm painting this roof. This is going to be the last video on this Mini. So if you do want to see this roof when it's finished off, jump up to the 33-minute and 30-second mark and I'll continue to take you through the finish of this job. And I really hope you guys have enjoyed this series. I had a lot of fun making this video. I also had a lot of fun working on this car. Lots of pre-workout powder, lots of energy, and it's great to turn an old car back into a beauty again. So sit back, relax and enjoy. So there's that roof all done and those couple of little parts over there. Pretty happy with how it's gone on this time. If it dries like that, I'll be real happy. Couple of bits of dust in it, nothing major, like, well, one great big rock sitting here, but that's easy to sand out. Give that a bit of a sand and polish tomorrow, and the customer will be right to pick his car up. It would be cool to see it all back together, but in this instance, as I may have mentioned before, he wants to save a couple of bucks by doing the fit up himself. And I guess in a way, like, when you're doing an old car like this, it gives you a bit more of a sense of achievement if you do a bit more work on it yourself, you know. Like, he was going to give the paintwork a shot himself. I think he made the right decision to get it done professionally. He's a floor polisher, I think, by trade, and yeah, he just bought this thing. I think it was like $8,000 or something from, so we're in Perth. He bought it from Victoria. And I tell you what, that was a really good buy. For a Mini Cooper of this condition, would be pretty rare. Like, not one bit of rust at all. You look in, a Pommy mate, an English friend of mine, came in and he said, oh, these Mini Coop, these Minis, always rusted out in that battery tray. You can't really see it in this light. I'll give you guys a look at it later, but there is not one bit of rust in any of the underbody at all. There was a slight, and I mean the slightest amount of surface rust, just started to pit down a little bit. Yeah, one of the cleanest cars of this age I've ever seen. All these parts, I decided to put 3 coats on them in the end because started using these new softback sanding sponges, some of the 3M brand, and we used to use all the Nortons, and 400 is usually right to paint over, but they were still a little bit scratchy after 2 coats. Like, they were really scratchy after the first one. So the second one you can still see a couple of fine scratches, but that 3rd coat ended up filling them up. Only next thing I'm really going to do is could possibly get a little bit of bridging up there, so I'll just move them so that hopefully we won't get any paint bridging up there. Worst comes to worst, if it does, I'll just get a clean razor blade and slice it straight off. It was sort of hard part to sort of set up. I didn't want to hang them. You'd have them flapping all over the joint. I mean, and they, on here, they sort of want to move around. So if I tried putting tape under there, then it'd probably move around and just be annoying. So I decided this was the best way to do it. I think I just saw one little bit of silicone starting to open up. Yeah, we've got one here. So I'll just get a touch-up brush and dab it in there. Not sure how well you can see that. There we, is that it? Yeah, just there. There it is. I'll just dab a bit of 2K in there. Keep it nice and fine, and we'll be able to sand and polish it. Apart from that, no silicone in it. Fish eyes, whatever you want to call them. Clean the gun out and yeah, leave it overnight. So I decided to finish this video off just with a little bit of a slideshow of all of the photos that I took on my camera while I was doing this video. If you guys have enjoyed this series, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. Feel free to leave a comment below. I'll do my best to get back to any relevant questions. I've got links to all my social media sites in the description below. Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, all that stuff. Check out my website if you'd like to keep up to date with all of my latest work. Facebook's where it's at, Instagram's big too. Now you've seen this video, get out there and paint some shit. Thanks for watching, and this has been another Gunman production. Goodbye.